There is something deeply unsettling about a place you are not allowed to see, not because it is ugly or broken, but because someone decided that what happens behind those walls is none of your business. England is full of places like that. Places surrounded by razor wire, watched by cameras that never blink, patrolled by armed guards who will not ask you twice what you are doing there. Some of these sites do not appear on any map. Others hide in plain sight, disguised as ordinary buildings on ordinary streets. But make no mistake, every single one of them carries secrets that would make your hair stand on end. And today, we are going to talk about the 20 most guarded of them all. Come on, subscribe, and let's start. Number 20. RAF Fylingdales. High on the North York moors, where the wind never stops howling and the heather stretches like a threadbare carpet nobody bothered to replace, there sits a structure that looks as though it was dropped from another planet. The solid-state phased array radar at RAF Fylingdales is one of only 3 ballistic missile early warning stations on the entire planet, and its job, put bluntly, is to tell the British and American governments when a nuclear missile is heading their way. The building is a truncated pyramid, an enormous 3-sided block of grey concrete and radar panels rising from the moorland like something out of a dystopian film. Before this structure was built in the early 1990s, the station was famous for its 3 gigantic white golf ball domes, which became one of the most recognizable Cold War landmarks in the country. The Americans built the original station in 1963 as part of their ballistic missile early warning system, and for decades it was operated jointly with the Royal Air Force. Today, the radar tracks hundreds of objects simultaneously, from intercontinental ballistic missiles to chunks of space debris. The security is exactly what you would expect for a facility that forms part of the Western nuclear defense shield. The perimeter is vast, the fencing is layered, and the entire area is designated as a prohibited place under the Official Secrets Act. No guided tours, no open days. If you wander too close, you will discover that the Ministry of Defense does not have much of a sense of humor about trespassers. Some people insist the station is secretly tracking alien spacecraft. The ministry says it exists purely for missile warning and space surveillance, and given the current state of global diplomacy, that seems like more than enough to worry about. Number 19. Porton Down. If there is one name in England that conjures images of men in hazmat suits and locked refrigerators full of things nobody wants to think about, it is Porton Down. Located on Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire, this sprawling complex has been home to the United Kingdom's military science program since 1916, when the War Office established a research station to develop chemical weapons during the First World War. The site is now operated by the Defence Science and Technology Laboratory, and its stated purpose is defensive. The scientists study chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats, so the military knows how to protect the population if the worst should happen. That sounds reassuring until you read about the Cold War. Between the 1940s and the 1970s, thousands of military volunteers were brought to Porton Down for experiments. Many were told they were helping to find a cure for the common cold. Instead, they were exposed to nerve agents like sarin and VX. One serviceman, Ronald Madison, died in 1953 after liquid sarin was dripped onto his arm. An inquest in 2004 returned a verdict of unlawful killing. Today, the facility covers roughly 7,000 acres and handles some of the most dangerous pathogens known to science. Armed police from the Ministry of Defense guard the entrances. In 2018, scientists there identified Novichok as the substance used in the attempted assassination of Sergei Skripal in nearby Salisbury. The proximity of the attack to the laboratory fed conspiracy theories for months. Porton Down remains one of the most restricted sites in England, and nobody living nearby has ever complained about a lack of excitement. Number 18. Menwith Hill. Tucked into the rolling hills of North Yorkshire, not far from the market town of Harrogate, there is a place that looks like a science fiction set, abandoned halfway through production. RAF Menwith Hill is covered in more than 30 white radomes, those distinctive golf ball structures dotting the landscape like enormous mushrooms. Beneath each one sits a satellite dish, doing something the British and American governments would rather not discuss in public. Officially, it is a Royal Air Force station. In practice, it is operated almost entirely by the United States National Security Agency and widely considered the largest electronic monitoring station in the world. The base was established in 1954 as a signals intelligence site. During the Cold War, it intercepted Soviet communications. Today, its role has expanded enormously. Documents leaked by Edward Snowden in 2013 revealed that the station is a key node in the global surveillance network known as Echelon, monitoring satellite communications, telephone calls, and internet traffic across the planet. Roughly 2,700 people work there, the majority American civilians employed by the NSA and defense contractors. The security is extraordinary. Reinforced fencing, topped with razor wire, CCTV cameras covering every angle, armed guards around the clock, restricted airspace above. Peace campaigners have protested near the base for decades. Some have been arrested for trespassing, others have simply been watched, which is rather ironic given what the facility does. Freedom of information requests tend to come back with most of the text blacked out, which tells you everything you need to know. Number 17. The Pindar Bunker. Beneath the streets of Westminster, buried deep under the Ministry of Defence headquarters on Whitehall, there is a bunker most Londoners have never heard of, and the government would prefer you forgot existed. The Pindar, sometimes called the Defence Crisis Management Centre, was built in the 1990s at a cost estimated at over £126 million. Its purpose is to serve as the nerve centre of the British military command structure in the event of a catastrophic attack on London. If a bomb were to flatten Whitehall, if something truly devastating were to happen, the Prime Minister and senior military commanders would be rushed underground into the Pindar to coordinate the national response. The bunker is connected by tunnel to Downing Street and other key government buildings. The exact layout is classified. What has been disclosed is that it was designed to withstand sustained conventional attack and maintain communications even if everything above ground were completely destroyed. Secure communications rooms, briefing areas, accommodation, independent power and air filtration systems. A self-contained command post for when the world above goes wrong. There are no signs pointing the way. The guards are armed, the doors are blast-proof. The name comes from the ancient Greek poet, though the connection between classical poetry and nuclear survival is not immediately obvious. Perhaps someone at the ministry simply liked the sound of it. Conspiracy theorists speculate about secret tunnels to Buckingham Palace and the Houses of Parliament. The government has declined to confirm or deny, which is the sort of answer that keeps conspiracy theorists in business indefinitely. Number 16. Burlington Bunker. If the Pindar is the plan for a short-term crisis, then Burlington was the plan for the end of the world. Hidden beneath the Wiltshire town of Corsham, carved into old Bath stone quarries, the Burlington Bunker was built in the 1950s to house the entire British government in the event of nuclear war. The ambition was staggering. If the Soviet Union launched a nuclear attack, the Prime Minister, the Cabinet, and several thousand staff would be evacuated to Burlington, where they would run whatever was left of the country from 60 feet below ground. At its peak, the bunker covered 35 acres of underground space and could accommodate up to 4,000 people for 3 months without contact with the surface. It had its own water treatment plant, hospital, bakery, telephone exchange, and even its own pub. There was an underground lake for fresh water and a television studio from which the Prime Minister could broadcast to whatever remained of the nation. The BBC had a dedicated space for the World Service. When the Cold War ended, Burlington was gradually decommissioned, and in 2004, the Ministry of Defence declassified the site and allowed limited public access. Today, parts can be visited, but significant sections remain sealed and under ministry control. The tunnels extend far beyond what any guided tour shows. Local residents in Corsham lived above this for decades, many completely unaware until declassification. Some were rather annoyed, which is the most British response imaginable, to discovering that the government built a secret underground city beneath your back garden. Number 15. AWE Aldermaston. The atomic weapons establishment at Aldermaston in Berkshire is where the United Kingdom designs, manufactures, and maintains its nuclear warheads. There is no diplomatic way to soften that statement. This facility builds the weapons capable of ending civilization, and it has been doing so since the early 1950s. The first British atomic bomb was developed here and tested in 1952 off the coast of Australia. Every generation of British nuclear warheads since, from early fission bombs to the thermonuclear devices carried by the current Trident submarine fleet, has come from Aldermaston. Several thousand scientists and engineers work at the site. The security is among the most intense in the country. Multiple layers of fencing with sensors that detect any attempt to cut or climb. Armed officers from the Ministry of Defence Police and the Civil Nuclear Constabulary guard around the clock. Vehicle checkpoints, biometric access controls, and a CCTV network so extensive that a curious rabbit could not cross the boundary without being recorded from at least 3 angles. The campaign for nuclear disarmament was founded largely in response to Aldermaston, and the annual march that began in 1958 became a defining image of the British peace movement. Protesters have blockaded the gates, climbed the fences, and chained themselves to anything that did not move, but the work inside has continued uninterrupted. Whatever your views on nuclear deterrence, the guards at the gate are not there for decoration. Number 14. Sellafield. On the windswept coast of Cumbria, overlooking the Irish Sea, sits the most complex and arguably the most hazardous industrial site in Europe. Sellafield began as a munitions factory during the Second World War, became home to the United Kingdom's plutonium production program in the late 1940s, generated the world's first commercial nuclear electricity in 1956, and is now the center of the country's nuclear decommissioning operation. The site covers 6 square kilometers and contains more than 1,400 buildings, many contaminated with radioactive material. Some house the largest concentration of plutonium anywhere on the planet, an estimated 140 tons. The Civil Nuclear Constabulary guards the site with officers carrying carbines and undergoing the most rigorous firearms training in the country. Radar, thermal imaging, motion sensors, and marine patrols monitor the perimeter. In 1957, a fire in the Windscale reactor released radio accident in British history, the worst nuclear accident in British history. The reactor was sealed and stands unused to this day. Decommissioning Sellafield is expected to take more than a century and cost over £100 billion. The government would very much like you to believe everything is under control. Number 13. HQ Bude. On the north coast of Cornwall, near the seaside town of Bude, where families eat ice cream and children build sandcastles, the British government operates a satellite ground station that intercepts communications from around the world. HQ Bude, formerly known as the Composite Signals Organisation Station Morwenstow, is part of the Government Communications Headquarters network. The station sits on a cliff top above the Atlantic, its large satellite dishes aimed at the sky, each positioned to intercept transmissions from geostationary satellites. Cornwall's position on the western tip of England gives it an unobstructed view of satellites handling transatlantic communications. The station has been operational since the early 1970s, and its role has expanded to encompass internet traffic, telephone calls, and digital communication. The Snowden documents revealed that HQ was tapping directly into fiber optic cables carrying internet traffic across the Atlantic, and Bude was a key component. Privacy campaigners accused the government of mass surveillance. The government insisted all interception was lawful and under warrant, which satisfied approximately nobody who had read the leaked files. The station remains fully operational, the dishes keep turning, and the people of Bude continue eating their ice cream as if none of it were happening, which is perhaps the most English thing about the whole arrangement. Subscribe to prove that these videos actually help and actually make sense. Number 12. HMNB Devonport. In Plymouth, occupying a vast stretch of the waterfront, Her Majesty's Naval Base Devonport is the largest naval base in Western Europe and one of only 2 facilities in the country licensed to refit nuclear-powered submarines. The base has been in continuous operation since 1691. At any given time, it is home to frigates, destroyers, amphibious assault ships, and nuclear-powered attack submarines. The refitting of those submarines involves handling nuclear reactors, which is why security goes far beyond usual military precautions. The Ministry of Defence Police, the Royal Marines, and the Civil Nuclear Constabulary all contribute to the protection of the base. Armed patrols operate on land and water. The Tamar estuary is monitored by radar and sonar. Any vessel straying into the restricted zone without authorization will be intercepted with considerable firmness. The base employs roughly 5,000 people between military and civilian staff, making it one of the largest employers in the southwest. Civilians living nearby can see the warships from their windows. There is something surreal about hanging your washing out while a nuclear submarine is being refueled half a mile away. But the people of Plymouth have been living with it for centuries and seem largely unfazed. Number 11. Northwood Headquarters. Behind high walls and dense woodland in the London borough of Hillingdon, Northwood Headquarters is the operational command centre for the United Kingdom's armed forces. The permanent joint headquarters, from which all British military operations overseas are directed, sits inside this complex. If British soldiers, sailors, or aircrew are deployed anywhere in the world, the orders and intelligence they rely on flow through Northwood. The facility also serves as headquarters for NATO's Allied Maritime Command. The site has been in military use since the Second World War, when it served as headquarters for RAF Coastal Command, protecting Allied shipping from German U-boats. Today, it is a sprawling complex of buildings, communications centers, and underground facilities, surrounded by a security perimeter that makes casual observation impossible. Armed guards, monitored fences, surveillance technology, operated by people for whom surveillance is quite literally their job. The streets outside are suburban and unremarkable. The houses have driveways and garden sheds. Behind the wall, people are planning military operations in some of the most dangerous places on Earth. It is the kind of contrast England does particularly well. Number 10. Thames House. On the north bank of the Thames, right on Millbank in Westminster, there stands a large Portland stone building that looks as though it could be a particularly grand insurance company. It is the headquarters of MI5, the security service, the organization responsible for protecting the country from terrorism, espionage, and sabotage. The building was completed in 1930, and MI5 moved in during the 1990s after outgrowing its previous premises. The security is formidable. Blast-resistant barriers surround the building. Armed officers from the Metropolitan Police guard the entrances. The windows resist both forced entry and electronic eavesdropping. Inside, there are secure briefing rooms, data analysis centers, and communications infrastructure that allows real-time threat monitoring across the country. MI5 has become more open in recent decades, with its own website and recruitment campaigns that would have been unthinkable during the Cold War. Despite this, the building itself remains firmly off-limits. You can walk past on the pavement, you can admire the architecture, but if you try to step inside without invitation, you will find yourself having a very brief and very uncomfortable conversation with people trained to deal with exactly that situation. Number 9. Vauxhall Cross. Directly across the river from Thames House, on the south bank at Vauxhall, there is a building that looks like nothing else in London. Its stepped green and cream facade has been compared to a Babylonian ziggurat, an Art Deco wedding cake, and the lair of a Bond villain. This is Vauxhall Cross, the headquarters of MI6, the secret intelligence service, responsible for gathering intelligence overseas. The building was designed by Terry Farrell and completed in 1994. The theory was that since everyone already knew MI6 existed, better to have a proper headquarters that could be properly secured than keep hiding in nondescript buildings. The security is extraordinary, even by intelligence agency standards. Barriers prevent vehicle approaches. The Thames provides a natural moat, blast-proof windows shielded against electronic surveillance. In September 2000, a rocket-propelled grenade was fired at the building from across the river, striking the 8th floor. The real IRA claimed responsibility. The incident led to a significant security review. Since then, Vauxhall Cross has appeared in several James Bond films, which MI6 reportedly views with a mixture of amusement and mild exasperation. The building is not open to the public, which should surprise absolutely nobody. Number 8. RAF Welford. In the quiet Berkshire countryside, surrounded by farmland and the kind of villages where people still wave at strangers, lies one of the largest ammunition depots in Western Europe. RAF Welford is technically a Royal Air Force station, but in practice, it has been operated by the United States Air Force since 1955. The base stores conventional munitions for the American military. It covers roughly 1,000 acres and contains hundreds of earth-covered ammunition bunkers arranged in neat rows. From the air, the pattern of grassy mounds is unmistakable, each hiding a reinforced concrete magazine filled with high-explosive ordnance. Double fencing topped with razor wire, motion sensors, CCTV, and armed American military police patrols. During the Gulf War and the invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq, convoys of ammunition left the base around the clock, rumbling through Berkshire lanes in jarring contrast to the otherwise idyllic setting. The nearest most people get to RAF Welford is the public footpath skirting the perimeter, where walkers enjoy the curious experience of rambling through the English countryside while being watched by armed guards behind razor wire. Number 7. The Bank of England Gold Vault. Beneath the headquarters of the Bank of England on Threadneedle Street lies one of the largest gold vaults in the world. It holds approximately 400,000 bars, each weighing around 12.5 kilograms and worth roughly £500,000. The total value exceeds £200 billion. Most of the gold does not belong to the bank itself, but is held in custody for the British government, foreign central banks, and international financial institutions. The vault is buried deep below street level, behind doors weighing several tons, opened using electronic keys, voice recognition, and physical locks. The walls, floor, and ceiling are bomb-proof. Access requires multiple levels of authorization. Even senior bank staff cannot simply wander in. Each bar is stamped with a serial number, purity mark, and refiner's name, and every single one is weighed and verified regularly. There are no public tours of the gold vault, though the bank occasionally allows journalists inside under strict conditions. The footage invariably features someone looking awestruck at 400,000 gold bars stacked in neat rows, which is understandable because that sight makes even the most level-headed person feel slightly dizzy. Number 6. Fort Halstead. Perched on the North Downs in Kent, Fort Halstead spent more than a century as one of the most secretive military research sites in England. Originally built in the 1890s as a mobilization centre for the defence of London, it was taken over during the First World War for explosives research. During the Second World War, British scientists worked there on the physics packages for the country's first atomic bombs before transferring the programme to Aldermaston. After the war, the site focused on forensic explosives analysis, counter-terrorism technology, and weapons effects assessment. When a bomb went off somewhere and the government wanted to know what explosive was used, the fragments often went to Fort Halstead. The expertise was extraordinary, contributing to some of the most significant criminal and terrorist investigations of recent decades. Ministry of Defence Police provided security, with strict access controls and the elevated woodland setting making surveillance of the approaches straightforward. In recent years, operations have been wound down and functions relocated. The land has been earmarked for redevelopment, though decades of explosives testing mean cleanup is far from trivial. Some areas remain restricted while decontamination continues, and the full story of what was researched there will probably never be told entirely. Number 5. The Royal Mint. The Royal Mint has been producing the nation's coins for more than 1,100 years. It moved from its historic home at the Tower of London to a purpose-built facility in Llantrisant in Wales in 1968. But the security principles that govern its operations speak to a tradition rooted deeply in English history. Every blank, every die, every ounce of gold and silver is accounted for with forensic precision. Workers pass through airport-style screening every time they enter and leave the production areas. Metal detectors, bag checks, random searches. The dies used to strike coins are treated as classified objects because a stolen die could produce counterfeits virtually indistinguishable from the real thing. Finished coins and precious metal blanks are stored in monitored vaults, and currency is transported under armed escort. The entire supply chain from raw metal to the coin in your pocket is tracked and audited with a rigor most businesses would find exhausting. Certain areas offer guided tours, but the production floors and vaults remain strictly off-limits. The public sees a carefully curated version of the process. The full picture stays behind locked doors and armed guards, as it has for a very long time. Number 4. Buckingham Palace Underground. Everyone knows Buckingham Palace. Millions of tourists stand at the gates every year, take photographs, and watch the changing of the guard, with expressions ranging from fascination to bewilderment about why the soldiers wear those enormous bearskin hats. What most visitors do not know is that beneath the palace, there exists a network of tunnels, bunkers, and underground passages among the most closely guarded spaces in the country. During the Second World War, a shelter was constructed to protect the royal family from German bombing. King George VI and Queen Elizabeth remained in London throughout the Blitz, and the palace was